So a little bit of background about the ghost boat. It's an investigation into a boat that went missing in the Mediterranean at the end of June 2014 with 243 refugees on board. Most of them were from Eritrea. And the thing that makes this case unique is that the boat disappeared without a trace. Usually if a boat sinks, there's evidence in the form of bodies, in the form of wreckage, in the form of an emergency phone call that was placed. There's some kind of record that a tragedy took place, and we know about it. But in this case, the boat disappeared without any sign. And because of this, the family members of the people on board, more than a year later, still don't know if their loved ones are living or dead. And there have been some strange occurrences that have taken place in the course of the last 16 months since the boat disappeared as well, that have given them hope that their loved ones might be alive. For example, there was a strange phone call from a Tunisian phone number to one of the families back in Eritrea that gave hope that these people might have accidentally arrived in Tunisia and been captured in prison and then perhaps deported back to Libya or to Algeria. So the families still really want to hope that their loved ones are alive, and until we can find evidence about whether they are or not, the families are still going to have that hope. So this is the investigation that we're doing. And one of the things that we're trying to do is really root it in the experience of the families, because a lot of times when we're talking about the migration crisis or the refugee crisis, the media covers it in a way that's very depersonalized. It covers it in a way that kind of treats it as a natural disaster, something like a hurricane or a volcanic eruption that nobody has any control over. What we're trying to do is cover it in a very personalized way through telling the stories of the families of the people who were on this boat and the impact that their loved ones being missing is having on their lives. And we're also trying to talk about the situation not as an inevitable occurrence, but the product of a system that is functioning in a way that makes tragedies like this almost a common occurrence, to the point where this boat went missing with 243 people on board, and it took more than a year for it to get any serious media attention. Just this week, there was an airplane that crashed in Egypt with 224 people on board, and immediately my cell phone was buzzing with updates telling me that the plane had crashed. When the Malaysian Airlines flight crashed or disappeared in March of 2014, just a couple months before this boat disappeared, it had 240 people on board, and the international media spent weeks, if not months, following the search for this airplane. But in this particular case, a boat with 243 people on board disappeared and virtually no coverage. And when I asked the family members who are very frustrated about this situation, who feel like they've been abandoned by the international community, why they think that's the case, they have a very simple answer. They say it's because we're Africans, it's because we're black. So I think one of the things that the media can do is not confine itself to these kind of hierarchy of tragic stories. When a tragic story involves sub-Saharan Africans and doesn't have a connection to Islamic terrorism, then it's ignored. And it doesn't make those stories any less important, because the people who are directly involved in them, their suffering is just as real.